back to the Irish Mags Show, episode 68. And let me just say it, to get it out there in the world, Newcastle United are Carabao Cup champions, League Cup champions, 2025. The wait is over. Over 50 years since we last won a major trophy. Over 70 years since we actually won a domestic major trophy. Holy shit, lads. We fucking did it. We didn't think we would do it, but we did it. And we are here to celebrate and enjoy every little moment of it. Before we dive into it, though, really quickly, Irish Mags are proudly sponsored by Flagman Ireland. And by God, was it a weekend for Flagman Ireland? I never saw as many Irish Mags flags in one location in London, never mind all the locations all over Ireland, which we'll come to in a minute. But if you are looking to get your hands on an Irish Mags flag or any flag needs you have, Flagman Ireland specialise in quality, digitally printed, personalised flags, bunting, tablecloths, table flags, and hand wavers. Their online store also stocks and sells a wide range of international and domestic flags, including their heavy woven government standard Irish tricolour. And better yet, they send products all over the world. For any queries, check out flagmanireland.ie. Oh, fun with flags. We had fun with flags.
Yes, we did.
I'm joined by Alan and Krisho. Krisho still has his flag over his shoulder and he's still weeping into it for 3 days. So we're gonna come to him once the tears have dried because he's a bit worse for wear. But Alan Williamson, as a man who's been talking a long time about this, Alan, just how does it feel? League Cup champions.
It feels like I was right.
Pass the mind back to the start. I told you so.
I love getting to say I told you so. I told you we beat Liverpool in this cup final at the start of the season, and we beat Liverpool in this cup final. I knew it was happening, and that's the end of it. I am delighted. It's unbelievable. I just don't know. It's great.
I'm still coming to terms with it, and there's different emotions about it, but it's just the fact that we've actually won a trophy. It's just as simple as that we've won a trophy, and I've been alive to see it.
Yes.
And it's not really about what trophy it is. It's just, Krisha, we just don't really win trophies, barring Sella Cups and certificates of participation in the Intertoto Cup finals. We don't win trophies, and that's what just feels weird about it. That's why I don't think I fully digested it.
No.
Even when I saw Alan and Tev raising an inflatable trophy, it just still didn't feel right. Maybe that's for other reasons.
I like nice to see you lads, and lovely to spend the whole weekend in London, which is, as you can tell from my voice, it's just returned to me at 3 p.m. today. I couldn't speak from Sunday all the way. I nearly didn't get on the airplane because I couldn't actually talk to the lady when I was going through the queue. She was like, sorry. But best weekend I've had in a very, 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 very long time. I was complaining to you guys because it took me 7 hours to get in on the Saturday, which was a disaster. I thought I was going to be left like a clown with this massive Irish Mags flag at the Dolphin. But I got to give a big shout out to Brian and Paul Clark, who were there and waited on and had pints ready. And then the night, we'll talk about it in a while, but the night just went insane Saturday night. And then Sunday with all you guys was just the greatest Sunday I've had in my entire life. It was the best ever. It was just absolutely the greatest thing that's ever happened.
Yes.
I'm so delighted Al was right.
You didn't even go to mass on the Sunday morning like I told you either. But again, look, you'll pay for that in other ways.
I went for breakfast with Cahill. We had a right laugh, and that was good enough. That was
enough. We're going to go through each of our experiences. Chris has touched on his, I think. I just think from an overall, so like just focusing mainly on the Irish Mags lads. I mean, honest to God, like we all know, we've all talked about it many times, how this group has come together, how this group has expanded, the crack we've had across Newcastle, across locations in Ireland over the last couple of years. It just felt like it all, as much as it came together for Eddie Howe and for Newcastle United on the day, from an Irish Mags perspective, it also just all kind of came together. There was a bunch of, like, obviously big, huge bunch of us over in London, over in the Sports Bar and Grill in Old Street. And we had literally the whole bar taken over. It was an Irish Mags takeover. Alan rocks in with his Dora the Explorer on the back of his back, full of flags. And next thing, we've got flags hanging up every possible corner, nook and cranny in the pub. And then the locations, obviously, outside of that, we had a bunch of obviously we had a good gang of lads that actually went to Wembley, and we'll come back to that. We had guys up in Newcastle, obviously, spread around the city, basically, I think, including the Stack. And then obviously on home soil, Dublin, Cork, Limerick, Mayo, Kerry, Derry, Laois, Belfast, like all over the place. And like some of the photos I'm coming in, I'm actually it's taken me 2 days to be able to actually turn on a laptop and move a mouse and coordinate. But I'm gonna get them all onto the irishmags.com website. I'm actually gonna put up a specific dedicated Carabao Cup Final 2025 gallery folder where all of the photos can sit. And it'll also allow me to then filter out the ones of me where I'm atrociously drunk and emotional. But I managed to dodge quite a few, I think, and only the police have the rest. But yeah, it's just that feeling. I don't know what it was, lads, but the more the week progressed after the West Ham game, we got over the disappointment of Anthony Gordon. We got over the disappointment of Lewis Hall and Sven Botman. We saw what happened to Liverpool against PSG. We did our predictions. We talked about what we need to do. It just gradually felt bit by bit that things were just coming together, and it was all just kind of, I don't want to say going in our favor, because there was nothing that jumps out at me to say it. It just felt like it. It felt like, compared to 2 years ago where we had the emotion, we were just so happy to be in Wembley and be in a final that it was more about going to London or celebrating the occasion rather than playing 90 minutes of football. And I feel like that's what was a lot different here, that, everybody was there to enjoy it, but it was like everyone was just talking about the game rather than here we are and the crack. Even though we were having a ball inside in the pub in London, for example, we were just, there was more talk about the teams, about Liverpool, obviously, about the PSG game, and about, is Tino going to match Salah, all that kind of stuff. So I guess the difference for me, Alan, in 2 years on is the football here prevailed, the plan prevailed, the tactics worked. And I guess it's fair to say, like, Eddie Howe got it right. Arne Slot did not get it right. Is it as easy as that?
Yes. Eddie Howe changed absolutely everything that we done before this final, during this final, and now after this final. Because 2 years ago, played against Man United, we actually stayed in the Hilton on Wembley Way, and it was just too close. They were in and amongst it all. The entire mindset was different this time. You could feel it. Like, we weren't ultra confident, but it just felt like we were going into this game with a different mindset, that we weren't playing the occasion. This was nearly like another away game for Eddie Howe, which is how big sides come into games like that. And it's great to see us finally acting like a big side. There was no fanfare. There was no mad major excitement by the players and all that, but everything just went right. And like you said, did Eddie Howe just get it right and Arne Slot just get it wrong? Well, after 65 minutes, I think it was, Slot had 7 attackers on the pitch, lumping the ball long against us in the hopes of something breaking from. So yes is the answer to that question, I think.
Yeah. I mean, I turned around to Al, trying to dodge, obviously, your flailing arm, knocking points out of my hand. But I turned around to Al. I think Al was after like 10 or 15 minutes. I kind of looked at you and said, we're right up for this. We're all over them. And we were all over them from minute one. I know it's been said many, many times, but to a man, we had them. We had them from the get-go. And it's beautiful watching Newcastle play like that. They've done it a couple of times, and we've all been witness to it, either in person in St. James's Park or away. But that game, after 10, 15 minutes, I was feeling confident about it, but I think it was all the booze we were drinking and the booze we had the night before. Maybe I was just in a good mood. But when I turned around to you, Al, and I know you're kind of, you watch it analytically sometimes the same way as I do. We had them. There was something good here. They were all on it. Every single player was on it. You could see the focus. You could see like that they were going to play this 90 minutes and they were going to smash Liverpool off the park. And we did. And it just kept getting better and better. We should have, like, 2-1 flatters them, if I'm honest.
Yeah.
It does flatter them.
Really does.
It does. I mean, obviously, it was a very late goal to concede. It's one of these things where I don't want to say it's a classic Newcastle performance, but it's a classic performance of, this is how you go and beat a team that, let's face it, is arguably or probably better than you, at least on paper and definitely on form and looking at the season overall. You can look at things like fatigue and more recent form, short-term form and all that. We came out against a side who we know have dominated all season, haven't really been properly challenged all season up until their clashes with PSG. And they still managed to come out of one of those with a win, despite being, the worst side in the tie. But this, for me, is one of those, it's one of those games where we focused and did exactly what we're good at. We're good at closing down. We're good at breaking things down. We're not good on the ball. So it's okay if they want to have it for a while, as long as they're not effective with it, as long as they have the ball where we want them to have the ball. And even Arne Slot kind of said it. He was like, and sometimes it's a derogatory statement. It's like we brought them down to our level, but it was more, no, we made them play how we wanted to play.
Yeah.
And we didn't want to dominate possession. We didn't want to start passing the ball around them. We wanted to be clinical when it mattered. We wanted them to get a fright when they had the ball in certain areas so we could catch them on the break. I'm looking at the stats here, lads. Liverpool had 65% of the ball in a Carabao Cup final, and we beat them comfortably. I know on paper 2-1, you might say that's not that comfortable, but Chriso just said it almost flattered them. But you start to flip that around. Okay, fine, they had 65% of the ball. They had 7 shots. We had 17. They had 2 shots on target. We had 6. We were clinical. They weren't. You can even start to, when you start to peel the layers. I mean, they had more fouls than us. You might think, oh, dirty tactics, but they actually had more fouls than us. We had 9 corners against their 4. I actually thought it was more than 9. And ultimately, lads, we just had in almost all of the good stats that matter in terms of clinicality, in terms of like touches in the box, in terms of, let's say, dispossession. All of this stuff really just amalgamates to we let them have the ball and then we took it off them and did good things with it, and they just couldn't handle it at all.
Yeah, Arnie Slot said that we were playing long balls and breaking up possession and this, that, and the other, right? They played 57 to our 61 long balls. So I don't know what he's talking about. They were trying the same thing we were. He knew it had turned into an aerial battle, kind of dogfight. They weren't up for it. They clearly weren't mentally right for it. And I know we're going to talk about it, but Salah was literally non-existent. Like he got one crossing in the first half, which Jota made a hames of trying to take a shot, but he didn't really do anything else from there. He just disappeared the whole game. The greatest player in Europe, probably in the last couple of years. Well, debatably, like top 5 anyway, top 3. He did absolutely nothing. Livermento had him dead to rights, bang on, and Dan Burn cleaning up. But look, I've just mentioned Dan Burn. I can't believe it. I'm going to bring in the hat. This is the hat that Paddy brought. I don't know whether you guys saw it, Alan, but yeah, you did see it, right? The Irish Mag St. Patrick's Day hat. It ended up in my bag, so Paddy, I have it. I texted him. So, yeah.
You stole it.
Well, Paul stole it, and Paul stole Brian Carr's glasses.
Brian's sunglasses as well, yeah.
So we have a good photo of him nearly falling into the tube on Sunday.
Don't leave things around unless they're nailed down, or otherwise I'm taking. In my defense, I left enough money behind that bar to cover all the things I stole.
Oh my God.
And or broke. But Alan, he's just said it there. Like, I do want to talk about Tino. I want to talk about a lot of different players individually, but I suppose we can't go into individuals. We can't go into heroes. We can't go into statues or, now godlike individuals in this side without talking about Dan Burn. And I listen to a lot of what I would call neutral podcasts, like non-Newcastle podcasts, Totally Football Show, whether it's Ranks FC, Rest is Football Cliches. Everyone is talking about Dan Burn. And it's like the more you hear about him, the more you hear about his story, the more emotional it gets, the more perfect it gets. And, we're talking about the perfect weekend. If ever a man has had a perfect week, Dan Burn gets called up to England at the age of 32 after being dropped out of the Newcastle Academy at the age of about 14. He was probably still 6'5" then. And, scraping it through the likes of, he was at Darlington, then he got to Brighton, and there was a Wigan, a Fulham, but like ultimately, it ended up in situations where they didn't want him, and he was let go. He was let go from League One, Championship sides, and then I suppose Newcastle took a punt on him. Looking at local lad, there's leadership there. He's more experienced. He can, I suppose, at best at the time, cover for Sven Botman, Alan, but. Sven Botman must be looking at this cunt. Shit, I've got a bit of a problem here if I get back fit. because what a week it's been for Dan Byrne. And to top things off, he scores in the Carabao Cup final and gets man of the match. Unreal.
The epitome of that cup final was Dan Byrne. He won a header after about 30 seconds that just cleared a bit of danger. Anything that went near the man was either headed away or headed into the back of the net. It was amazing. He was our man of the match. He won man of the match, and it was very obvious that he was our man of the match. He won everything. I actually don't think he put a foot wrong in the entire game. And it's not often you can say someone went through an entire game not doing one thing wrong. But I think he did it. And as you said, like getting the England call up from where even when he signed for Newcastle, he wasn't signed as he'll be here in 4 years' time. He was signed as this lad will help us not get relegated, and he'll probably be moved on quite quickly after that. And now you cannot replace him at the minute.
No way.
He's just
insane.
Amazing.
He's a colossus, this fella. He's an absolute colossus, let's be honest. Like Al said, from minute one, this guy did nothing wrong. I mean, apart from Joe Linton might have got man of the match, but Dan Byrne was brilliant in defence. Isaac said it after the game. It's not just his goal. Dan Byrne broke up everything. He was everywhere. He was making crazy runs. You saw the run he made in the second half. What was he up to? But he was there. He was getting stuck in.
He's done that a few times as well, hasn't he?
Yeah.
He goes on these mazy runs. He gets a bit excited and carried away.
Yeah. He was a colossus. Unbelievable. It couldn't happen to a nicer fella, because he like, talk about heart on sleeve. I mean, he is quintessential heart on sleeve guy. I mean, the club is basically stamped into the back of his brain. He is Newcastle United, and having the performance from here. I didn't really see Shar have to do much because Dan Byrne was nearly covering for the two of them. That's how good he was. It was nearly just him on his own running the show. The header was very Alan Shearer-like. It's one of the proper heads. I didn't see the actual ball go in because Al and you and everybody was all over each other. We were just beers in the air. Craziness. I didn't actually see the goal until yesterday or the day before on highlights because I don't remember it. I'm like, ooh.
That was the points.
Yeah, that was the points. But that goal was savage.
It was an
absolute bullet.
Thumping header. Just a thumping header. And it was almost like all of the emotion, all of the hardship of the difficulty of his career, all of the I'm now in the England squad, the sense of pride, achievement, and wearing the black and white in Wembley Cup final. It was almost like every bit of it went into his forehead and just smashed that. Like Keller didn't have a chance. Keller didn't have he hasn't been at his best, but I don't think many keepers, if any, are gonna save that. I mean, they would need to be taller than Dan Byrne, I'd say, first of all, to get over to it. Bullet into the corner, and yeah, it was just emphatic. And I mean, fair fucking play to him because, all of the grief he's probably had over the years, the negative commentary about his ability. And look, we've probably spoken derogatory terms about him in the past where we've seen him give the ball away. We've seen him slow on the turn. We've seen him have difficult games at left back. To overcome all of that and to now have a League Cup winners medal and what's likely to be an England cap in his cupboard. I mean, geez, that man, we can retire that man to stud if and when he pleases, but I don't think he's done yet. I don't think he's done yet, Big Dan.
No.
Sometimes I don't know. You can't really put a measure on the additional 10 to 20% someone can give in terms of mental and physical, effort because of how much they care for the football club. I mean, we could have 70 million Mark Gahey out there. I just don't think we'd ever get that out of Mark Gahey on that day and that occasion. I just don't think you'd get the same. You get other things, but I just don't think you get that. And in a world where PSR is shit and you're forced to sell off academy players and local lads, that's the epitome of the value of having local lads in the team. And it's great. I'm proud that Newcastle are one of kind of the more prevalent teams when it comes to the amount of local lads we still have in the first team.
Longstaff didn't get on, did he? I mean, he was dressed and ready to go and to go on, right? But Eddie changed his mind and put Kraft on.
Yeah.
Poor old Longstaff. God, he could have got one last little hop on to Wembley just before.
There's plenty of time in the season, and he did his contribution. It was his penalty against Forest that actually sent us through earlier in the League Cup. So he's contributed, so I wouldn't be too worried for him.
Yeah.
Look, there might be some more moments between now and the end of the season. Okay. Let's talk about two players combined, Alan, which is Trippier and Livramento. There's a lot of discussion here, a lot of discourse. Obviously, the Lewis Hall situation, he's been so good all season. We already saw Lewis Hall have a very good game against Mo Salah a couple of weeks ago when we played, and obviously lost to Liverpool. I mean, first of all, like Livramento, Trippier, Crisho, one of them, Crisho or Trippier, whoever is above you on the screen there. It's hard to tell who's who. Crisho has already mentioned Livramento, I suppose, bossing Salah to the point where Salah, like first game in however long, he didn't even have a shot on goal. But there's a lot to be said about Trippier as well here, I think, in just terms of leadership, in terms of his quality, and it's just a couple of dodgy moments come kind of forgotten almost. That's the Trippier in a Newcastle kit we know. It
looked like Trippier was back to his best. And I'll hold my hands up. I was one of the people who was like, yeah, I want him not gone from the club, but if an offer had to come in, I would have accepted it. I'm still leaning towards that due to horrid PSR rules, but it wouldn't be anything other than that. But he was just outstanding. I don't think he was beaten by Jota at all, and Jota ended up getting hooked. So that'll just tell you how well he marshalled him. The only time Jota even got in, he was offside. So I don't think Trips put a foot wrong, and his dead ball delivery was outstanding. And I've been one to be very critical of his delivery from dead balls the odd time, but every single one was it either found a man or was into a dangerous enough position where you're saying that is a very good ball. But his leadership, he marshals that back line so well. He's the only player on the team that you can look at and go, he's a manager. In 5-10 years time, he will be managing a team somewhere. Come here, it could be us, you never know. But he has that mentality where you're going, he will drag 11 men through anything and you'd follow him, because he knows what he's talking about, and he just looks like he knows exactly what he's doing every single time he has the ball at his feet or whatever he's doing. He just looks like he knows exactly what he wants to do, and it's great to see him back to his absolute best for us.
Yeah, well said, Alan. Well said. Because a lot of people, like, he has put in some below par performances. We all know his qualities, don't get me wrong, but in terms of, like Al said, leadership. And the fact that he was so on it from second one, and he had a look across the line, and they were all with him. Everybody was with him, up ahead of him with Murphy and Tonali and Bruno. I looked through all of them within the first 5 minutes, and you could see Trippier was leading from the back about getting everyone to calm down, focus, control, take your time. He had it all. He was mouthing the whole game. He never stopped once. And he had, like you said, Al, he had the Liverpool line in his pocket. He didn't give them a sniff at all. They hadn't a chance of getting anywhere near him. And then Livramento, I think the irony doesn't escape us that Livramento crossed it in for the second goal with his left foot. Very Hall-type cross. So I'm just so delighted for Livramento, the fact that we obviously think he's going to be a future England right back. He's going to be our right back for the next 10 years. But the fact that he can go into a cup final, play on the left-hand side against one of the best players in Europe, and get an assist, well, technically an assist, it's just, and then, like, to add into all of this, we could talk about this for 2 or 3 hours, but Murphy getting a header down, I mean, I haven't seen Murphy head the ball, I don't know, in a long time, but he jumped like his life depended on it, and he bet, I think it was Robertson in the air.
Yeah, Robert.
And knocked it down. Isak does his world-class little jump to the side, and honestly, I'm not sure if, the goal that was cancelled as offside, it was actually just Bruno in the way, right? Bruno was offside, right? But like we had them rattled. Even in the first 5 minutes, second half, we had them rattled.
Yeah, and it's not often I find sometimes with Newcastle, and we've seen it even in the last few weeks, even if we've had a decent first half, we've seen other teams start better than us. I think, for some reason, Fulham is in my mind on this one.
Yeah.
That they just came out and started better in the second half. It's not always our strength. That didn't happen. It was just, like I said, everything, so many things falling into place, and rightly so. And Alan, just as Chris was talking about, we're talking about Tino being our right back of the future and being England's future right back. What's stopping Tino from being England's left back, especially in this particular international break? Obviously, Lewis Hall is probably the long term.
That was long term. It's Lewis Hall.
Yeah, looking at it now, like they've brought in Miles Lewis Skelly, who's obviously very young, a couple of red cards to his name. they're a bit short on left backs right now. As we look at this international break, it's not crazy to think that we might see Livramento at left back for England, and maybe alongside Dan Burn at centre back.
Well, it would not be beyond the realms of possibility to see him at left back. And come here, not that I don't want to see him play left back, but I'd rather see him play right back because that's where he will progress going forward. But just he was amazing as well. Like you could just sit here all day, go through every single player that was in the squad. Mark Gillespie was the best player on the bench. It was amazing.
he held that bench together. You're right. We could talk about all 11 players, and we're not going to get through them all. Chris Shaw mentioned Joe Linton, and Chris Shaw. Let's talk about Joe Linton. And it was someone I know we called out. I definitely called out in terms of like difference maker potential.
Yeah.
And the reason I was originally kind of thinking it was we didn't have him against Liverpool last time out in Anfield. We didn't have the protection. We didn't have the breaking down, the brute force, the sheer determination. We had Joe Willock, I think, covering for him in that game, which just wasn't even close to it. But Joe Linton came in and did what Joe Linton can do and showed a lot more of the world now just what Eddie Howe has done with this player to make him like this one of the most feared midfielders in the Premier League.
All the 6 years, Paul, of his time there was all focused into that one performance. His love for the city, his love for the fans, his love for Eddie Howe. You saw in his interview. I was proper tearing up watching him get upset and say how much he loves the place and how much. But from second one, let alone minute one, Joe Linton was in it. Bruno wasn't doing the shouting at the fans thing and cheering all the tackles. He let Joe Linton do it. He let Joe Linton play his game. So that allows our, I wouldn't say more talented, but maybe more skillful midfielders play their game. Joe Linton is a disruptor. He's a machine. He's a monster. People are scared of him. I mean, the bloody size of the man, for God's sake. But he broke up everything. Anytime there was a second ball, Joe Linton was all over it. And then he was turning to the fans and giving it all this. And the more he G'd up the fans, you could see the more it pushed the team on. They like Liverpool fans I didn't really see that much on the TV of them making too much noise, to be honest with you. It was mostly Newcastle fans making the noise. But Joe Linton had them whipped into a frenzy. And his performance was to a part. Honestly, it was a 10 out of 10. If Dan Burn, hadn't played so well through defence and scoring the goal, the man of the match definitely would have went to Joe Linton. He ran the show completely, and he allowed Bruno and Tonali to play their game. But Joe Linton, I hope he stays with us for the rest of his life. I hope he signs a 10-year deal, stays with us forever. I love him.
Men of the match.
Yeah.
Petition for more than one man of the match in a League Cup final. I think it's fair. Okay, let's continue. Look, there's a couple of other individuals I think are worth speaking about. I suppose we might as well. It would be silly not to talk about Alexander Isak here. For the sheer fact that he scored a banger of a goal. He had the ball in the net twice. One was ruled offside. He wasn't offside. He's not really done a whole lot wrong in the situation. He caused them havoc again. You can see Van Dijk, Konate hate playing against him. Every team in the world thinks they're able to sign him. None of them are ever going to, Alan. But it just shows you how good Byrne and Joe Linton had to have been in this game, because we're not talking about Isak for man of the match. Yeah. Despite all the things I just said, including and we can talk about the goal. Incredibly well taken first time goal.
Yes, on
the hop, just shows you like what an unbelievable finisher he is.
That was an instinct to finish it. You could just see ball dropped him. It was in the back of the net before. Gallagher couldn't even set himself before it was in the back of the net. Just outstanding. But there was a little bit of talk in the first half. How do we get him into it? And I was like, Isak doesn't need to be on the ball every single minute of the game to be well in this game. He just pops up and he can get a goal like that. He's just one of them strikers as well. Don't get me wrong. You give him the ball out on the left wing, he'll be 4 men and put the ball in the box for someone else because he's just unbelievable. Can't believe it. And just on the nobody else can touch him. Once Yasir Al-Ramayan said, we do not want to let him go, as Craig Hope has said, he's not going anywhere, lads. We're safe as houses with that. If they do not want him to go, he's not going. So, hands off.
Yeah, I mean, like our friend of the channel, Matty, was at the celebrations at Box Park. He's a cheeky Newcastle head on him, and he asked him straight up, and he told him straight up, and he was going to say it to him because he knows he's going to say it on YouTube or something. But he did say to him, "Don't worry about nothing. I'm not going anywhere." straight up, and he believed him. He was being honest. He said, "I love this place. I love this club. I'm not going anywhere." And I don't even see, like, people don't have 150 million pound or 175 million pound. They don't. Barcelona don't. Real Madrid don't.
That bar in London has it after the day I spent
there. Can we just? I'll just before we go on about the Isaac stuff. I moved money onto Revolut. I told the lads on the chat on the group chat, move your money into Revolut. You won't get charged any charges when you beep, because if you use your Bank of Ireland card, you will. So anyway, I looked at it, right, and a lot of money was spent on Saturday and Sunday. A lot of money was spent. We bought.
Someone on this podcast bought 2 bottles of Prosecco. Wasn't me.
2 bottles.
Wasn't Crisho. Yeah. And the worst Prosecco I've ever had in my whole life.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Welcome to our special guest, Tev. No, it wasn't Tev.
you bought pink Prosecco. Did you? It was pink.
I bought whatever they had. I think I actually bought 4, to be honest. I think there was a second two.
Just speaking real quick. I want to get this out of the way because I know the lads followed it, and I know I told you about it. But after we left, we got to the boot. We played a bit of pool against some Newcastle people. A guy out of nowhere pointed across the bar, an older fella, and he went, "Crisho?" And I was like, "Oh shit, how does this person know me?" Because I had the big Irish Mags flag with me, and we met the London Mags as well. And he was talking about his son watches the podcast, this, that, and the other. I said, "That's very nice." He said, "Can I get a picture with the flag?" I said, "Sure, no problem." And he says, "I'll tell you what, I've got a good feeling about tomorrow, and it's always good for you Irish fellas to be bringing us luck." And I thought, "Oh, no worries. Yeah, thanks a lot, Daddy." I turned around, and he came over to the pool table with 8 bottles of champagne. Not Prosecco, champagne. And I thought, nice. What are you doing? And he had little flutes and everything with him, not flutes, little flutes, champagne flutes. And I went up to the bar, and the lady behind the bar, who was Irish, who owns the place, she said, "Oh, by the way, he's just ordered 32 pints for each county of Ireland." And I went, "What?" "Yeah, he's paid for it in cash." So, lo and behold, he was going to leave. And I said, "Oh, hang on a second. We got videos and so on, so on, so on." He bought 16 lager, and he bought 16 pints of Guinness and 8 bottles of champagne. And that was at 11:30 on Saturday night. So you can imagine where we went.
I think this was this like the ghost of St. Patrick himself?
He did look a little bit like him. I just couldn't believe it. There was only 30.
I was complaining about my 4 bottles of Prosecco and what that cost me in that bar. This man just put me
He outlaid 500 quid. There was only 30 people left in the bar, and we had 32 pints and 8 bottles of champagne. So,
my God,
I just went around handing everybody a drink, and then everyone thought it was me, and I was like, "No, I'm not that. No, that's not me. It's this guy here." But by the time we turned around,
what we will say is, if he's listening, or if his son is listening, he'll be finding out. Please get in touch. We want to thank you,
yes,
and we'd love to get you on the podcast sometime as well. Drop us an email, info@irishmags.com, because we need to talk more about this.
Yes.
And you're the reason Crisho is a broken man the last couple of days, as we can see. Fair play, though. I mean, look, that's all we can speak of is the crack that we had in London. We know the similar levels of crack we had all over the country. The photos that have come in of Cork and of Dublin and of Limerick and of Belfast and everywhere the lads were, Laois and Kerry and all over the place. It was obviously, first of all, great to see, and we'll have them up on the Irish Mags website, but just to see everyone having such a great time, it was like a reward for years and years of hardship as Newcastle fans. It's phenomenal.
Paul, shout out to Sean Bowes, everybody. Sean Bowes.
Did Sean Bowes do something right?
No, he ran a wonderful evening for everybody in the Bleecker Street, and he got a lot of compliments about it. So I think it's only right for us to call it out on the podcast. Fair play, Sean. Well done.
Considering we normally just abuse the head off him.
Yeah.
Sean, for once only, because we're all in a good mood. Sticking with that good mood really quickly, one other thing on Isaac I wanted to say as well was, and again, because we remember we were doing our predictions, actually, or not our predictions, but we were talking about what we would love to see happen. Almost all of it came true. Dan Burn scored and Newcastle won. Crack we had, but one of the things I really wanted was I was hoping Isaac would just score a brace and just be, bask in the hero worship. But when he scores that goal and he's jumped up on the advertising, the hoardings on the side,
unreal,
and he's just soaking it all in. I mean, that is what, as a fan base, that is the dream, to see that, for him to be in, feeling what it's like to win trophies in the black and white, realizing he's got the best fan base around him possible. There's just no comparison. And again, it just goes back to, why would he want to go anywhere else if we can, give him what he wants? Not just about money, but obviously in terms of ambition for the rest of the season. Last player I want to talk about on an individual basis. I feel like we should just talk about every single one of them. I feel like it's harsh not to talk about them all. But the big debate, Alan, we had during the week was Nick Pope or Martin Dubravka. And obviously Eddie Howe went with Nick Pope. We kind of suspected it a little bit. You will remember the majority of the fan base were voting in polls for Martin Dubravka. Thoughts on Nick Pope in this game, Alan? There was one particular massive save, which you'd argue is, barred the goal, which he couldn't do a huge amount about, was all he had to deal with. But I don't know if that's the save Martin Dubravka makes, but overall, was it the right choice?
Absolutely was the right choice. There's a reason Eddie Howe was the manager, and we're all sitting here talking rubbish on the internet. There's a reason lads are on. There's a reason all the people on Twitter were voting for Martin Dubravka. We don't know. Eddie Howe knows. There was a ball over the top after about 5 or 6 minutes, and it was just a moment where I went, that has vindicated Eddie Howe putting him in, because Jota could have, now it turned out he was offside, but didn't really matter. But he got out, tackled Jota before he got near the ball, and won it clean as a whistle. That's safe. The save was unbelievable. His kicking wasn't, bar in the 90th minute when Murphy was about to come off, his kicking wasn't all that bad either. He done what he needed to do. He didn't give you any heart attacks with the ball at your feet, which is unusual for him, because he does often like to give you the odd scare, if you know what I mean. But he was unreal. He did nothing wrong. What he had to do, he done. Let's be honest, he couldn't do much about the goal. It was more Bruno losing the ball in the middle of the pitch, but we can forgive that because we won the cup.
Look at even the stuff we were talking about, when the ball gets past him, his first touch is a bit poor. He actually put his foot on the ball to slow it down, stop it, and then kicked it. And I thought, wait a minute, this is a different Nick Pope. What the hell? But that save, I mean, honestly, guys, there's still about 15 minutes left in the game.
Yes.
And that save is, watch it again, it is out of this world. How he spread his whole body and just tipped it over the bar. I was like, God damn, Nick Pope. That's the Pinocchio I want. Do you know what I mean? The flexible one. That Pinocchio, that's the guy we keep. But I guess he's just kind of, it'll be all right for him being number 2 behind James Trafford next year. I'm all right with that. I'm okay with that. For a couple games.
It's funny because I saw Crisho in the bar in London. We probably weren't too far from Wembley, Alan, that Crisho kind of went like this and Nick Pope's arm moved, so maybe he had the strings tied onto him.
Gigantic marionette doll.
Yeah, like this. Go on. Do it.
I won't even do the song. Right, no strings on me. Totally lost my fucking chain of thought here now.
Oh my God.
Oh, Jesus. Right, this is not a Disney podcast. This is a Newcastle United podcast. Okay, so here's what we know. League Cup champions. The hoodoo is over. All that hurt, all of that hardship. And we're now officially the team with the least number of days since we last won a trophy. Which is today, but it's actually nice to enjoy as well. But one other thing that probably, I don't want to say it's got overlooked, but it probably just hasn't been talked about as much, Alan. Guaranteed European football, no matter what happens now.
Yes.
And there's still a question mark there. As far as I know, League Cup, it gets you minimum entry into the Conference League.
Yeah.
But obviously that will depend on where we finish in the league, which is super important. And then whatever else happens everywhere else. But we have a European adventure no matter what way you look at it. And what did we say last year? Latvia or bust? We're going somewhere. We're going somewhere.
Going to Kazakhstan.
Yes,
we're going to. Okay, that's the new one. We're going to Astana.
So it's a Conference League, is it? It's Conference League.
We're guaranteed entry into the first qualifying round of the Europa Conference League for winning the Carabao Cup.
Right.
When we finish 4th, we get Champions League.
Yeah. So that only comes into play if we don't finish in a Champions League or Europa League spot.
Yes.
or obviously like
which will help.
automatic conference league, etc., etc. So it'd be interesting. It does create an interesting dynamic for league places, but more so for other teams because we think we should expect. We have high expectations of finishing higher than conference league. Let's say.
Yeah.
And let's use that as a segue to round things off because I'm wrecked. I need to lie down again.
I can't speak. Yeah.
The memories and the Prosecco and the Pinocchio and it's just Alan, this can only be a good thing for the run-in for the rest of the land. We have an international break, which is probably a good thing. Give us all a bit of time to calm down, but this can only be a good thing for the league running. In terms of what have we got? 9 games left in the league?
8-9 games.
We should probably have checked that.
Yes, it would have been good to actually prepare for the podcast we do, but let's be honest.
Yeah, imagine.
Like winning a league cup cannot be bad for
games.
confidence. 9 games left. Winning a league cup cannot.
And quickly, we have 10 games because we have a game in hand, but everybody else around us has 9. Yes, including Liverpool. Okay, interesting. So we have 10 games. Everyone else has 9.
Yeah,
it's not a lot of games, Alan, but there's so much we can take into this run.
It's, I hate saying this, we have a not on in as well. Like we've games where we're at home, we should be picking up maximum points from nearly all of them. I think there's only 2 games run towards the end of the season where I'd be really, really worried we won't get anything out of it. I think it's Chelsea away and Arsenal away. I think I'm not too sure about that Chelsea game. I know it's Arsenal away, but it's, as I said, cannot take a negative from winning a cup. It's going to do the lads an absolute massive boost to their confidence and hopefully gives us the impotence to go on another 11-game unbeaten streak, rock ourselves into the Champions League with a healthy 25 points or so going into the end of the season.
Yeah, Chriso, do you agree in terms of that momentum? In terms of what it can mean from the players, to look back and say, well, we've won a trophy now. That's done. Now we can focus on the league mentality-wise. Do you see anything to worry about? Or is
everything is all positive now. I can tell you, whether I was going to go negative at all, I'm never going to do that again. But we got 6 games at home out of the 10, and they're all winnable, very much so. Man United, Villa, that they might be a little bit oof, but I still think we can do it. And looking at a predicted table here, based off the statistics of the last 5 years, it's Liverpool, Arsenal, Notts Forest, Man City, Newcastle United 5th with 65 points. And that's based off our remaining fixtures. We might even get 4th, depending on how Man City play in the next couple of weeks. But that's Champions League, right? 5th is Champions League. So it's just, I don't see us having any real particular issue. There's so much. I mean, we discussed it now here the best we can, and so has half of the YouTube and half of the world for the last couple of days about how important it is to get this monkey off our back and just really win a trophy. I think that what you'll see over the next couple of weeks, especially tying down the Isaac deal for whatever amount of money a week he gets, 300, 400 grand a week, whatever he needs, give it to him. I think that this is going to have such a bounce for us after the 2 weeks. Enjoy ourselves in Dubai, relax. Have a bit of wind down and so on, do a bit of light training and come back and just really attack this with real fervor, just like they have now the reference point that we can play in big games when it matters the most against really, really brilliant teams like PSG and Liverpool. And I think that we can just push on and get 4th. I think we're going to get 4th personally at the end of the season.
I tell you what, I would take 5th. I would have taken 5th. I would have bitten your hand off it at the start of the season, regardless of whether that's an extra Champions League place based on the squad, the transfer window, and all that. I would still be in the same situation. Happily take 5th because again, you're still dealing with Man City. Fair play to Forest doing what they're doing. I think Chelsea are the ones that are going to continue making the balls of it, and I'm perfectly happy to sit back and watch that happen. So yeah, I'd feel a lot more confident in that sense, but I suppose only time will tell. For me, it's a case of there's still a lot more other players that might be looking back. I want to contribute more. We've come through that final. A couple of subs made. The guys that come in did well. There's still, Callum Wilson should be looking at it going, right, I want to contribute to this league running. Like Harvey Barnes, you want to see him do even more. Obviously, when he's stepping in for Gordon. And I think Gordon is still out for another game after this, if my memory is right. So Joe Willock will be thinking about it. Right, I could have been closer to getting more time, making more impact. He hasn't. So you'd like to think that bringing all that together, we've had players come through. Hopefully, the international break passes without any major injuries for some of the guys that are traveling, and come back as this unified squad who have a trophy, who are like can't wait to play together again after that League Cup final. And as Fisher said, you can beat anyone.
Yeah, get it out here on the podcast as well, everybody, just in case you missed it. But the parade is down for Saturday, the 29th of March, just so everybody's clear. I don't know who's going or when you're going or if everyone's going, but 29th of March in Newcastle is the parade.
Alan's pointing at himself there, so we'll see what's planned. I know there's a lot of questions about who's going where. It's about 10 days' time. Keep an eye on all the WhatsApp groups. If we are organising things, whether it's in Newcastle, whether it's in Dublin, whether it's around the country, we'll keep you posted. But all of it, as usual, will be in the WhatsApp groups and on the irishmags.com. So check it all out. I think we'll leave it there for this week. Krisho needs to go another length and have another lie down. I need to go and destroy evidence of bank accounts and statements because I never want to see it again. Alan,
I'm going to watch the match for the 50th time.
Alan, as a man who's just moved into a new gaff, you may need to destroy some evidence as well.
That's why it's all on the Revolut. It's all
on the Revolut. That's it.
Up the Revolut, and up the Newcastle United. We're League Cup champions.
Come on.
Get in.
Get in indeed. Eddie Howe, Dan Byrne, Alexander Isak, Nick Pope, Tino Livermento, every one of them lads, heroes. As is everyone in the Irish Mags. What a fucking weekend it was. We'll be back for more Irish Magnus next week. We'll be starting to talk about Premier League things all over again. So until then, how are the lads? How are the fucking lads?
Come on.
Go fall, and we'll see you all very soon. Say goodbye, gentlemen.
Slán a bhaile.
Slán a bhaile.